Hello and welcome to a beautiful spring day in Utah. I am incredibly excited because I am starting my second year container garden. As I've said, I am working on trying to get back to roots and traditional living and bringing fresh food into my home for my family. And I don't exactly know how to do that because that just isn't how I grew up. And so I'm really excited to take you guys with me. My name is Kirsten. If you are new here, I'm a mom to two little ones, and I am trying to figure out how to bring a homestead-like lifestyle into my world while being a full-time attorney and taking care of my marriage, doing all the things. So I wanted to talk through this year, just going through how I planted my first year garden and lessons that I learned from that and the research that I've done. And then this year talking a little bit more about strategy, because we want to be a little bit more intentional about actually bringing in some food to harvest at the end of the season. So I am also going to show you the little space that we have. We are renting an in-law suite apartment from my father-in-law. So we have some space at his house that we can use, but we are limited to containers because we didn't want to permanently do anything to his property, and we wanted to be able to take our stuff with us when we move into a house. We're just going through that process. The housing market in Utah right now is absolutely absurd. So this is what we have to work with now, and I thought it's better to at least just start and do something small so that I can learn. So here we go. This is what we want to do. So right now I have a few pots and a grow box, which I will show you in a second. And what we would like to do is plan to really focus on vegetables. I will buy a couple of flowers, but really just focus on pollinators. I don't necessarily care about the artistic aspect of having a lot of flowers around because I'm blind. I can't necessarily appreciate them anyway, and I want my garden to be more of an asset in terms of food. The space that we have in my father-in-law's house is this area of the porch, and I really hope to optimize it this year, try to fit in a few more things. So right here we have my father-in-law's fire pit, and so I will take this stuff off and use it to hold extra soil and fertilizer, compost, mulch, anything like that. And I can also store stuff underneath. I used to have my watering can underneath this cloth. I don't know where it is, but we will find it. But I will take you over here. So this is his table and chair set. And then right here is our pot setup. So we have a few pots that we have planted vegetables in. So there's a pot here. This one is my blueberry bush. I'm pretty obsessed with this container actually because it's a pretty blue and then it has kind of a bubbled texture, which I just love. And I'm very excited because there's already some green here coming in on my little blueberry bush. So I need to give it the acidic fertilizer. Oh my gosh, so excited. Here's another pot. This is an herb box, which is also going to be fun. Some of these are coming back, some of these are not, so I definitely have to go through here and figure out what I'm going to do and see what else I can plant in there. And then here is mint. I need to figure out, because there's a tiny bit of green growth at the bottom, so I'm not sure if you're supposed to remove all of this up here. I'm pretty sure you can, and then I'd like to compost it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. And then our plan also is that I want to potentially add a grow bag with some potatoes, and then I want to get a green stalk and use that multi-tiered vertical system to grow something like strawberries. I also was considering growing some elephant garlic or some onions, so we'll have to play that by ear. I actually grew onions last year, and you can see a lot of them are growing back, which is really fun, except I was at the nursery moving really quickly and I accidentally grabbed only green onions. So that kind of flopped and I will have to figure that out. But the other thing I really want to work on is this. This fencing, I'm not sure, Joe, if you can see through the camera how sharp this is, but this is rabbit wire that we got from the IFA. And I need it desperately because the dogs get into the plants, but I'm not exactly sure what to do because it's incredibly sharp at the top. I have cut myself a number of times, and the kids are going to be out here all the time, and I cannot have them cutting themselves. So in the comments, if you have any suggestions for fencing that I can use for deterring dogs but still making sure that people don't get hurt, I would be very grateful. So this is our space. I think I'm going to optimize it a little bit more. Like over here, you can see I have a little bit more space that I can try to fill in. Maybe with a couple of more pots, or maybe this is where I'll put my green stock. I'm not exactly sure. I can also put things in his front yard that is in containers. I don't want to mess with his, permanent landscaping very much, but this is what we have to work with, and I will take you with me. So now I will go sit back down and talk through some of the mistakes that I learned last year and strategies for this year and what we're hoping to grow. So we are hoping to be able to plant some tomatoes. Last year, I just tried to do one dwarf cherry tomato plant, and I wasn't that impressed because I felt like it didn't produce a lot of tomatoes. It didn't grow that big, which of course it's a dwarf, so it wasn't supposed to, but it just didn't turn out the way that I was hoping for in my mind. And so this year I will plant probably 2 or 3 tomato plants, and I will pick indeterminate varieties so that I can harvest them throughout the season, freeze them, and get them ready, because in the fall I would love to try to can. I've never done that before, but I'd like to make marinara sauce or pizza sauce, or even just diced tomatoes, maybe other tomato products, but I think those are the 3 that I would like to focus on primarily. I get a little bit nervous at the idea of canning without vision because it talks, what I've been researching, there's a lot of things that you have to look at, but I can do it, it'll be fine. So there's tomatoes. Then we would like to plant potatoes. I'll probably do that in a grow bag. I'm not sure how many we'll get, but last year I tried to plant potatoes and then the dogs dug them up and ate them, and I was so livid, I can't even tell you. So I'm fighting off a little bit of a spring cold, but hoping you can hear me still. So we're gonna do some potatoes, probably some russets. I think we eat a lot of those. We have a blueberry bush that I got last year. It didn't produce a lot, but I'm told that's very normal. The first year, it's mainly just growing and settling into its pot. So I'm going to fertilize that a little bit more frequently with liquid fertilizer, as you're supposed to. And I'm hoping to get a little bit more of a blueberry yield this year. We'd also like to buy a raspberry plant or 2. So I have to research more about how many they recommend to get and whether you should plant them together or not. I didn't really understand, I think, how gardening can be impacted by what you plant next to each other, and certain things should be by each other and other things not. And I don't know, the science of it shocked me a little bit. You don't just put things in the dirt and see what happens. Well, you can, but there's things you learn throughout the process, I think is what I mean to say. So last year we grew bell peppers, and I do not think we are going to do that again because I was very unimpressed. I think we got maybe 3 or 4 peppers the whole season from the little pepper plant that we had. And I now understand that that's not how people grow peppers. I've seen other homestead channels who were starting seeds, and they would plant like 30 pepper plants. And I was like, oh, that's what I did wrong. And I don't have the space for that. I don't have the area to put the pepper plants. It's just not possible for me. So I think peppers are probably going to be out of the picture. We do have herbs, and the herbs I'm really excited about. We have basil, rosemary, thyme, oregano, parsley, and those did really well for me, and I harvested them throughout the season last year. I put them into food, and I thought they were fantastic. What I learned, though, is that I need to be better at pruning my basil bush, because I would prune, but I think I did it wrong after watching some things and trying to figure out exactly what happened, because my basil would go to flower, and then I know you can still eat those, but they were kind of a little bit more bitter, and I didn't want to use them for pesto, so it just kind of it was a little bit tricky. And oh yes, onions. So onions, I did buy onions, as you saw over there. But I planted only green ones by mistake, so I'm going to try to plant some onions and see if those grow. I was thinking about strawberries, so we'll have to look into that. And then the last thing is potentially some beans, either some sugar snap peas or also just beans that you can harvest and probably can or store and then use throughout the year as you want to. I've heard that beans store very well, so I'm excited for that. So I think that's our plan. What?
Thinking broccoli and cauliflower.
Oh, yeah. So Joe's out here with me. He's just behind the camera. We've talked about broccoli and cauliflower too. I'm a little bit nervous because I understand that brassicas like slightly cooler weather. So I think you're supposed to plant them, right around now and then harvest them before it gets too hot. But we're in Utah and it could be 100 degrees like next week or something. So I don't know how well that's going to do before the broccoli will bolt, but I am going to try and we will see what happens. So we have to try to figure out, as you saw over there, I only have a few pots. And so I think I'm going to try to either add another container or two into my little area or fill up my green stock or something to try to fit all of those items into there. But I think that's going to be good enough for us this year. We might not get to all of it. I don't know, but that's the plan, and I will show you what we end up doing once we plant everything out with the kids. They're so excited to garden with us. And then I will do kind of a tour, an updated tour, once everything is prepped and planted and ready to go. So a couple of lessons that I learned from last year that I will focus on not doing again this year. First, a couple things around watering. So I accidentally overwatered my tomatoes and then they got a little bit of root rot. And I was nervous that I wasn't watering enough. And then I ended up doing that. So then I stopped watering that as much, but then I got skittish about my other plants too. But then I don't think I watered those enough. So then they got dry. It was a whole thing. Like I have to try to figure out a better balance on watering. Another thing is fertilization. I learned that container gardens do not do well if you don't fertilize or provide some sort of nutrients like compost a little bit more frequently than something you would put in the ground. Because in the ground, you have organisms and worms and other animals that are putting nutrients back into the soil and creating that incredible symbiotic relationship with your plants. And in a container, you don't have that because it's a container, and so they don't have exposure to the other things that live in the soil. And so you have to be the one to supplement, and I didn't necessarily realize that. And I was scared to over fertilize because you can burn your plants. Oh, so it was this whole thing. But I'm going to try very hard to make sure that I am giving my plants the food that they need. Another thing that I learned is that I should prune a little bit more frequently. Sometimes if something was going to flower, you have to prune that, and you have to, for example, I didn't know you were supposed to cut your onions back every now and then. People call it giving them a haircut, but I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know you were supposed to do that. So I did buy some pruning shears from the store a couple of days ago, and I'm excited to take those with me and have them. I used to last year I'd go out and kind of pluck some things here and there, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I understand now that pruning is not necessarily an aesthetic thing. It's actually helpful to your plants, and allows them to focus energy where you want the energy to go, which is into your leaves and the fruit that you intend to eat and harvest. So I'm glad to know more of those things. Something else that I really want to do, and I will take you with me on that as well, is to compost. So we are going to get a compost tumbler, which I'm really excited about. And I want to do that because I really hate food waste, and I want to do something that can give back to my garden. Plus, since I'm blind and I can't drive, I order a lot of things from Amazon. So I have plenty of cardboard boxes to chop up and put in as my carbon element to my compost. So I think it'll be a lot of fun and something that I will enjoy having to give back to my plants, as part of that nutrient supplement that I was talking about. Something else is that I didn't realize that certain plants need a little bit more shade than other plants. I just thought plants love full sun all the time. That's it, right? And that's not actually true. So maybe some of my food items I might end up putting in the front where they get some sun in the morning, but not as much. They might benefit from a little less sun. And sometimes you can actually burn plants from the sun. Their little leaves fry. So, I'm going to try to be a bit more nuanced in where I place the plants to try to make sure that they benefit from enough light and enough water. So I think that is definitely something I'm going to focus on. Another thing is, I already showed you guys that rabbit wire. I just needed something to keep the dogs out, but I really need to optimize my growing space with something that does not hurt. So I'm in the market for a little bit of a better fencing boundary situation. And then I think lastly is the idea of vertical gardening when you have a small space like we do. I've never understood that they make these planters that are multiple tiers and they don't take up much horizontal space, right? They just grow up. And so I've seen Greenstock, that's a company that makes them, and they have 7-tier plants and 5-tier planters. And I think those would be great. I've seen people, grow thriving harvests with these tiered planters. And I'm excited to be able to try those because I think it really helps you maximize your yield rather than having to plant out multiple different pots, in a horizontal space that you don't have. So I think those are the main lessons that I learned. As well as you're supposed to harvest throughout the season so that you can encourage your plant to grow more. And I would get really nervous because I was like, well, I gotta wait because, I gotta let this pepper get a little bigger, or this tomato needs to get a little bit more ripe. Like, no, I need to be more proactive in harvesting the food so that the plants can grow more. And I think that will be really useful to us and beneficial to bringing the food from the garden into my home and cooking for my family. So I think those are the lessons I learned from container gardening last year. That's our tentative plan. I hope you enjoyed looking at our little space, and I'm very excited to take you with me after we end up planting things out. I'll show you what we do, as well as other gardening adventures and composting and things that we do this summer. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.